tonight's webinar will be done in English. And the reason for that is being that one of our guest speakers is preferred language of choice. That brings me to tonight's speakers. First of all, we will be starting with Geavanceerde. She will be talking a little bit about personalized nutrition and also the role of LHM within that aspect and that topic. After that, she will be followed by Dr. Orhan Ozek. He is the Director of Research at COGAP, one of our dearest and valued partners. And our final speaker will be Olaf van der Zanden. He is the owner of Top Physiotherapy in the Netherlands. And if you have any questions for our speakers, this can be asked in the Q&A module or the V&A module, which can be found in the top of your toolbar. If you have any questions, please write them in there and we will pick them up and answer them. Should your question not be answered within this webinar or this night, then please be assured that we will send you the answers afterwards. And of course, after every speaker, there will be a few moments to read out the questions that we have. So after that, I believe that is it for my introduction in this part. And I would like to give the word to Cheyenne for the first topic.
Yes, thank you, Matthijs. Today, I will be introducing a topic that has increased attention in healthcare, namely personalized nutrition. In this small introduction, I will briefly explain what personalized nutrition is, how Food Valley NL contributes to this, and why this is so important for LHM as well. The regular healthcare system is constantly evolving by shifting the focus to a more personalized approach. It is increasingly recognized by professionals that there is no size that fits all, and that everyone is actually different. So the goal of this concept of personalized healthcare is to improve human health and put consumers and clients more in control of their own health. So up till now, there has been no worldwide accepted term, but the following statement seen here on the right is the meaning of personalized nutrition by an organization called Food Valley, which is actually a partner of us. And they say that personalized nutrition could be a service or a product. It uses individual specific information, is founded in an evidence-based science, and has the goal to give consumers control and promote a positive, sustainable dietary behavioral change. So I suppose if you put personalized nutrition into a broader perspective, it is not just depending on or influenced by one specific topic, but it's actually multidisciplinary. It involves, for example, microbiome, metabolism, environment, exercise, dietary habits, or genetics, or a person's phenotype. So as I just said, LHM is partner of the personalized nutrition community of Food Valley NL. They are a non-profit organization funded by the government to develop sustainable solutions to shape a healthier eating environment for consumers and make personalized nutrition accessible. So in Food Valley, we are partner of the VIPS pilot, which stands for Vitality and Interaction via Personalization Makes Us Stronger Together. And in this pilot, many partners will join the forces and offer their solutions to achieve two goals. The first one is offer a vitality program for employees. And the second one is to bring personalized nutrition into a general public. So finally, I would like to elaborate on why we as LHM would care for personalized nutrition and arrange this webinar tonight. We offer specialized and most of all personalized tests that focus on three pillars that we believe are needed for a healthy body and mind. So that's nutrition, movement, and mindset. And all of our tests align well with the personalized therapy. We have, for example, the IMUPRO test, so the IgG food allergy test that comes with a personal result. We have also gut microbiome tests. We have a personal stress test, the NeuroSpot. And in the end, we also offer a genetic analysis to determine personalized macronutrient metabolism. And in this sense, I would like to elaborate a little bit more on the latter. And this slide actually shows that genetics and genetic analysis in case of personalized nutrition covers a lot of these bullets that I've discussed before. So Matthijs, I would like to give the word back to you now.
Yes, thank you very much, Cheyenne, for your presentation. Then I would like to continue with our next and our first guest speaker, Dr. Orhan Özek of COGAP. Could you please share your screen and your microphone?
All right.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So thank you very much, Matthijs and Cheyenne, for this wonderful introduction. Yeah, so my name is Orhan Özek. I'm from COGAP. I'm very happy to be here. So thank you again for this opportunity to speak here and to present this topic today here. And maybe we just break the ice or try to break the ice with a question, because I always like to start with a question whenever I give presentations. And the question today is a very simple one, and it would be, what is actually food? What can food be? So food is culture. Every culture has its own way of eating, his own way of how do I behave at the table. In this example here, they sit on the floor and not at the table. So let's just say food is culture. Just a second, I have to arrange a few things. Okay, perfect. Good. So food is culture. Food is also religion. So every religion has basically its own rules. What can I eat? What can I not eat? When should I eat? When should I not eat? So at this point, we just say food is also religion. There is no business without a good meal. So every good deal is sealed with a good meal. So food is also business. Food also brings the whole family at the table. So food is family. As you can see here, different generations are all together at one table. So food is a family. Food can also be used to create a new family. In this case, here is a date that you can see. Well, if this date is not so successful, food can be frustration. But if the date goes well, food can also be a lot of happiness. So food is really a part of our life from the very moment that we are born until the very last day that we live. It accompanies us every day in every life situation. However, food can also be obesity. And this will be kind of our main topic, obesity and genetics. And now we will break it step by step down and go much more deeper into the topic of this webinar today. So we do have indeed a very specific problem in our society. And this problem is that many people tend to believe that obesity, being overweight, having too much kilos on, is an aesthetic problem. But if we look at these very simple numbers, like here depicted here, for example, 2.5 million deaths worldwide every year due to obesity, to overweight, not because they have less food, but because they have too much. Mortality risk is rising when a person is overweight. The life expectancy is, of course, reducing. And even if we go and break it down to morbid obesity, the life expectancy reduces up to 20 years. So at this point, with this slide, the take-home message is obesity, overweight is not an aesthetic problem, but it's really a medical problem. And now let us try to understand why it is not an aesthetic problem, but a health problem, a medical problem, and a severe health problem. Well, the reason is very simple, actually, because the adipose tissue, so the fat tissue, is also the biggest endocrine organ that we have. And what does this mean? This mean basically it is an organ that constantly releases messenger substances. And in this case, um, a lot of these messenger substances are inflammatory messenger substances. This in turn leads to all these pathogenic factors that are accompanied with overweight and obesity. For example, insulin resistance, hypertension, arteriosclerosis, and the list, unfortunately, is very long. In 2016, there was a very, very nice meta study carried out showing that very, very clearly 13 types of cancer are clearly linked to being overweight. So whenever you are overweight or obese, um, the likelihood of developing this type of cancers is very high. And I like to stress this point quite a lot when I give talks, because among these 13 types of cancer is very important for the women in our audience are postmenopausal breast cancer and also ovary cancer that was clearly linked to being overweight. So we understood that this is a very severe problem, but on the other hand, science and studies also show some, at least say, bright news, which is basically 5 to 10% loss of body weight already leads to a significant improvement in these comorbidities that are accompanied by being overweight and being obese. All right, so at this point, let us just summarize what we just learned. So obesity, overweight is a health problem. We have now understood why it is a health problem. And we are now at a point where we want to say, all right, so I'm overweight, I have too much kilos, I would like to lose weight in order to improve my health status and avoid all these diseases that are accompanied with being overweight. What should I do? Should I maybe go ahead and start a low carb diet? Because I heard maybe from a very good friend that low carb diet is working. Should I do endurance training? Should I do a high carb diet? Or maybe should I do EMS training? And now maybe you can realize I keep on clicking, I click, and a lot of different types of diets pop up on my screen, on my slide. And so the bottom line is there are so many different diets that work for some person and not for the other, so that we really can talk about the diet jungle. I mean, all of them are somehow good, somehow working, but not for everyone. We don't have anything that works for everyone in the same way. All right, I keep on clicking. Okay. So now, all right, so we got at the point that we wanted to lose weight, but realized that something that might work for a person does not necessarily needs to work for me. And scientists were always curious about this fact. So why is, when we speak about diets, why are diets not working for every person in the same way? And back in the 80s, research already suspected a very strong how strong the genes would influence overweight, actually. So back then, the scientists did not have the knowledge that we have now today. So genetics, people knew what genes were, but of course it was not that far as we are today. Nevertheless, the scientists suspected something, and they suspected that genes might play a role, or at least they would influence overweight. And they were pretty tricky because they thought of an experiment. How could we somehow see if this is really related to genes? And what they did was they identified 540 adults that were adopted. So we had 540 adoptees, and then the scientists went and measured basically these adoptees And then they measured their adoptive parents, and they identified their biological parents and also measured their biological parents. And the outcome was very nice, very significant, and very clear. Now let me guide you through this outcome. So the adoptive parents of the participants had often a very different physique. So there was no relation between the physique of the adoptees and of the adoptive parents, although they spent the whole year, they spent their whole life together. Their whole life, they sit on the same table, ate the same food, but their physique were different. On the other hand, the biological parents that were identified were often very similar to the adoptees. There was a very strong relation from very thin people, very thin adoptees, to very fat. I apologize, but this is exactly how it was written in the study itself, in the paper itself. But here, let me guide you through this picture here. So here on this X line, you see basically the adoptee weight class, so the adults that were adopted. And here you see the biological parents and the body mass index of the biological parents. So whenever you had obese adoptee, their biological parents were also quite high with the BMI. And if you had thin adoptees, their biological parents were also more or less with the same physique. But the adoptive parents were completely different compared to the adoptees. So the outcome of this was, all right, the researchers did this very nice experiment back in the 80s, and they were right. So they suspected that genes might influence, and this was kind of the first way in really showing, without doing any microbiological experiments, they were already able to see that there might be a strong connection between inherited genes passed from the parents to the children. Now let's jump back in our time, in the modernized genetics. And I would like to present to you now a very, very interesting study that made this point very, very clear that we want to make today. So imagine now we are more than 50 people together here in this virtual room. And let's just imagine every one of us gets a plate with exactly the same type of meal. And we all eat the same type of meal. What will happen? Will we all react in the same way to this type of meal, to this type of food? Or will we react differently? And this was a question that scientists in Israel wanted to know and questioned, but they didn't do this with a small group of people, but they did this study with 800 people. And they measured a lot of different parameters. One parameter was the blood glucose level. And so again, just to be sure, to make sure, 800 people, everyone eats exactly the same food, the same amount, the same type of food. And then different parameters will be measured afterwards. And here is one example, which is the blood glucose levels. Here is the blood glucose amount, and here is the time that was being measured. And what you can see here now is, so among those 800 people, you had people with basically no rise in the blood glucose levels. And then you had people where you had a huge increase of blood glucose levels. But it was not only black and white, so you did not only have the one thing and the other thing, but they also observed everything in between. So a lot of different reactions to the exact same type of food. And again, why? Because everyone is built slightly differently. Everyone metabolizes the food differently. And the outcome, the conclusion that the scientists draw from this very powerful study was basically a general diet recommendation is pointless, because something generally applied to every person does not really work, because every person is an individual and every person reacts differently to the same type of food. So we do have a problem here. Something that is usually a very nice thing, which is individuality. But when it comes to losing weight, to adjusting a diet plan with the goal of losing weight, then individuality is really a problem, because everyone needs to be treated individually. So there is no pattern recipe for everyone. On top of this problem with the individuality, there is the complexity of overweight. So how does overweight basically develop? And overweight is not just caused by one single problem, but it is indeed very complex. And I hope you agree with me that this looks indeed very complex, what I'm showing you here. Yeah, don't worry, you don't have to memorize anything at all from this, but this should show us something very, very important. And it has a few take-home messages. So the first take-home message is, okay, complexity of overweight. I think this is very nicely depicted here. But the other thing is that leading to overweight, we have indirect factors and direct factors. So we have a lot of indirect factors, which would be the food supply, mental factors, lifestyle factors, social change. So all of this different types of stuff are indirect factors that indirectly influence the development of overweight. But as a matter of fact, there are only two direct factors. So the first one is the energy balance. Very, very simple. How much do I eat? How much do I burn? And what is the sum of this, right? And the second direct factor are the biological factors. So the sex, the age, hormones, cytokines, all kinds of internal procedures, and of course, genetics. These are direct factors that directly influence the establishment, the development of overweight. And how can we now understand this genetic factor that directly influences my personal weight, my ability to develop overweight and obesity? And in order to explain this, I would like to first take another approach to explain this whole topic. So what you can see here is now a little guy that should represent a headache. What do you usually do when you have a headache? So whenever I ask this, the audience, I get a lot of different answers. But the bottom line is one person may take aspirin, another person may take paracetamol, again, yet another person takes ibuprofen. Others don't take anything at all. They just drink water. And so I get a lot of different kinds of answers. And why is that so? Because every one of us basically learned during their life which medication works and which medication does not work. And let me just give you an example now from me and my wife. So when I have a headache, I know that aspirin is working for me very well. When my wife has a headache, she doesn't take aspirin because that doesn't help her when she has a headache, but she takes paracetamol. Why? Because she learned when she takes this, her headaches go away. And why is that so? Why are we reacting differently to different kinds of medications? This I would like to show you right here. So now imagine this is the agent, in my case, aspirin. So I take this, and in my body, so this is just to be clear, this is now very simplified, but the bottom line is clear. So we have an agent, in my case, aspirin, and in my body, I have a receptor. And if this agent, or in science also called ligand, if this is binds to the receptor, then we get an answer. And the answer is a signaling cascade, and the end of this signaling cascade is headache, go away. So again, the agent binds to the receptor and the headaches go away. And how this receptor looks like is written in my genes. My genes are basically is the building plan for this specific receptor. Now let's have a look at my wife. Again, the same agent, in this case aspirin. But now take a look at this. The receptor looks slightly different. Why? Because my wife has at the same region in her genome a slightly different change in the gene. And this in turn leads to a slightly different receptor. And that then in the end leads to the point that the agent cannot really bind efficiently to this receptor and her headache is still present. Okay, so the difference here, I think, is clear. It is in our genetic makeup that we have slightly small differences that lead then to different outcomes. Now, this scientific discipline is called pharmacogenetic. And just to end this here, this is a also a very strong scientific field and also already used in the present day. And maybe you can already imagine in what type of medical field this has the most valuable impact. Well, the field basically is cancer. Now imagine you have a patient that has cancer and are able to do a genetic test before you treat the patient. Then before the treatment starts, you would already know the medication that I will give to this patient. Is it working or is it not working? And this is really the difference in this can save the life, right? If you know beforehand if the medication is not working. So cancer pharmacogenetic is a very strong field. It is developing and already used nowadays. So there are a lot of certain type of medications that are only described if if a genetic test is taken before. Now, if we understood now this mechanism between an agent and the reaction in our body, now let us just erase this word pharmacy, and replace it with nutrition, with food. And then we end up in a scientific discipline called nutrigenetic. How does my body process the food that I take into me? How is the food processed? How is it breaking down? And how does my body react to different types of foods? This is the field of nutrigenetic. Now, let me give you a very clear and specific example of a gene that we analyze with our test that I will show you later on. But the same mechanism that I described earlier. So the gene is called PAR gamma. And what does this PAR gamma do? It's right here, right corner here. This gene produces a protein, the PAR gamma protein, and this protein is a transcription factor with a receptor function. So this might sound a little complicated, but it's very easy. So here it has a receptor function. And at this point, fat molecules that we take in with the food can bind. So in this case here, it's called the ligand. So the ligand binds, and by binding to this protein, the protein gets activated. And in his activated form, it will bind the DNA and lead to transcription and translation of different outcomes. So here you can see the supply of glucose, acceleration of fat metabolism, and formation of new fat cells. This is the answer of binding to this protein. Now, there are gene variations that alter this. So here again is the receptor, the binding spot. And there are people that have a slightly different variation in the PAR gamma gene that we analyze, which lead to a not so well binding spot. And then this happens what I just tried to describe you earlier before. So the binding is not so sufficient. And if we break it down to a diet plan, then we can say that these type of people are not so sensitive to high fat in the meal plan. So then we can really go ahead and arrange and optimize the diet plan according to this type of different ability to process the food in a different way. Now, taken together all of this information, we have a couple of years ago, we have gathered all of this information that was available from science and chose a different set, a very specific set of genes, a very specific set of SNPs that we do analyze in our test called MetaCheck. And the purpose of this is then to really go analyze the genes of a patient or a person and see what can this person metabolize, how does this person metabolize the three great macronutrients, carbohydrates, fats, and protein. What is needed for a test like this? So it's very easy. We need a simple cheek swab. Unfortunately, thanks to Corona, this got very popular. But I can at least say it's not so bad like a Corona test. So you don't have to really go deep anywhere. So you just need a very simple cheek swab. And all of this is done in an anonymized way. So we have an anonymized sample that gets to our laboratory and then is analyzed by us in this anonymized way with only labeled with a barcode. We use the Saarstedt forensic swab. So this is just a very standard swab, DNA-free and ETO sterilized. And then what we do is once we receive this genetic sample from a person, we analyze the genes, the certain amount of SNPs that I just described that we have chosen for our test. And genetic raw data looks like this. And I hope you agree with me when I tell you that no one will ever lose any weight with this type of data, right? But this is actually the raw data that comes out from the laboratory. So our task was take this DNA raw data and translate it basically into a useful dietitian recommendation. And this is basically what we did. And in order to do this, we defined 4 different metabolism types. So the short form is metatypes that are characterized by the ability to process carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. And let me just quickly walk you through the 4 different metatypes. So the first one is alpha, characterized by the fact that it processes protein-rich foods very well. But on the other hand, carbohydrates and fats should be reduced because they are less well metabolized and therefore more strongly stored in the form of body fat. So a person that has the metatype alpha, a person that would like to lose weight, a very clear, for example, low carb diet, low carb, low fat diet would be the perfect choice for this person. Then metatype beta, just like alpha, good with proteins, but beta is also good with fats. So here, low carb would be the choice for a person with a metatype beta. Then it's the opposite, metatype gamma. Gamma processes carbohydrates very well, but fats and proteins not so well. So this person does not need to take a low carb diet. So here, the diet plan would look completely different. So no need to reduce carbs at all, right? And delta is just like gamma, good with carbohydrates and also good with fats. So here you really see 4 different types that processes the 3 macronutrients in a different way that we can then use to optimize a diet plan for this. And this diet plan can have different purposes, either weight loss or just a sustainable, healthy lifestyle. So in addition to this, in addition to the meta types, we also identify the most efficient sport type that will lead to burn calories. So we distinguish here between endurance sport type and a speed sports type. And this is also really very easy. So just imagine you would like to do an hour of sport. Which sports would be the best choice for you in order to burn most efficiently to burn calories, right? To burn most of them. In which way should you train in order to be most efficient? And here we can also make a clear difference between endurance and speed, again, genetically determined. So here's just a little summarize. We have the meta types, and for each meta type, there will always be a corresponding exercise variant. So there can be any combination you can think of. And here again, so the closing remark is defining the meta and sport type will optimize the personal diet and physical activity to match the individual's own genetic makeup to really make the best of it. Okay, now we performed the test. What will you get from us? What will your patient, your customer receive? So of course, a report. And let me break the report also down for you in the next few slides. So we determine the meta type. So this is really the heart of the whole analysis. And then we, along with this, we give an optimal macronutrition distribution. We also already include a 4 weeks nutrition plan that carries out this optimal macronutrition distribution. So the nutrition plan looks like this. It's easy to implement, and of course, in the starting phase, the motivation is the most highest. So we really want to give the patient, the customer, something in his hand so that he or she can start right away, right? And there is no need for the customer or for the patient to start calculate, okay, I have this distribution, how much should I eat of this, how much should I eat of this? This is all already being done by us and implemented in the 4 weeks nutrition plan. But also let me make this point here. For example, if you are a dietitian and do not want to have a plan like this because you want to develop your own plan, but taking the genetic results into account, then we can, of course, also leave out this 4 weeks nutrition plan and just leave it out in the report. So here we definitely have a variation that we can work with. Accompanied by this nutrition plan is a food list with over 800 products, which looks more or less like this, and it's color coded. So green is most suitable for the person, yellow is suitable, should be consumed 2 to 3 times a week, and red is rather poorly suitable and should be consumed 1 time a week. So it should still be consumed. So we do not exclude anything. So the test will not give you an outcome, for example, like you should never eat carbs ever again because you cannot process them very well. So this would be nonsense, right? So, but the distribution is the key in this whole concept. Along with this, we also determine 5 very important weight loss factors that we can also read from the genes. These are different tendencies. So what is the tendency towards the yo-yo effect, the saturation, loss of muscle mass during a diet, how is your hunger feeling, and what is the tendency towards visceral adipose tissue. And these are very nice points that you can integrate in your counseling and really make it very individual, a very individual counseling for each patient and each person. All of this is also more or less summarized in our free online-based app. So the app is basically, it has a diet plan, it has a lot of different recipes that the patient can choose of. It has the food list, it has exchange tables, it has all the different outcomes for the sports type. So it's basically the report in a digital way. And I mean, although I'm presenting now in English, everything that I show you here, including the report and the app, is also available in Dutch. Okay, so this is everything for the food part, and the sports part is for the nutrition part, and the sports part is also covered very well in the report. So again, we determine the best type of sport. And here we give you this example that I said, 1 hour of exercise. What would be a good amount? How should I distribute speeds type of exercises and endurance type of exercises? In this example here, you see a person that has a very strong speed type. So why do I say strong? Because within the two sports types, we also have variations. So you can have be a very strong or rather not so strong speed or endurance type, right? And then therefore, how strong this distribution is, the variation is, the distribution will also change. So here you have again a very individualized recommendation. Along with this, we have individual training recommendations. We also have individual training recommendations for EMS training. So here again, very specific for sports type S and for sports type E, endurance. Then we also have a list with suitable courses. If your patient or customer goes also to a gym and participates in different courses, or even in front of his home screen at home, we give a suitable list of courses that again fits to your sports type. Yeah, so this should represent this list. So I did not want to bore you with a simple list, but this should represent different types of courses. Okay, now I gave you a lot of information on how the whole genetic topic works, how we can really break down, we can really look at genes, look at gene expression of gene variations, and come up with individualized recommendations. And I would like to, so we're getting close to the end, I would really like to present to you 2 cases, 2 reports. So the first one is Farid. Farid is metatype Delta, endurance sport. He is a restaurant owner, an Italian restaurant, so Italian food. And the typical excuse, I have no time, and that's why I look like this. So I work all day, eat all day, and no time to lose weight. But Farid did our test, and this is how Farid looked after 12 weeks. He was very dynamic. And so why do I keep saying Farid? So that's his name. So these are real person, right? These are real person, real stories, and they gave us the permission to present this to you. So this is nothing made up. So these are real persons that gave us the permission to represent their cases. And here, just a funny story to add this. So a lot of people asked him, Farid, how did you manage to lose weight in his restaurant? And he just kept saying, well, you know, guys, I have an Italian restaurant. I'm metatype Delta. I can process carbohydrates and fats very well. So I just ate Italian food all day and turned into this nice young man. One point I would like to make clear here is we published this. So since this is a real person, with the permission, we were also able to publish this case story. In this case, it was a fitness journal, but the take-home message here is very clear. So whenever there are cases, we are also always happy to help and to publish this type of case reports. And would also, of course, like to show you an example for a woman, in this case, Linda. So Linda is also metatype delta, and in this case, sports type speed. So Linda did not go the typical way, low carb, right? Because this obviously she tried, but did not really work in a sustainable way. And this was Linda afterwards, after 1.5 years. And so she lost a lot of weight, 61 kilos on this picture. But the most successful point for her was she lost it in a sustainable way. So we are still in contact with Linda, and Linda is still looking like this, very happy. And that was basically the key, right? The key to success in a sustainable weight loss. And again, Linda was also published, and it was a huge story in a magazine. And also the counselor of Linda was presented in this magazine. So again, just really to show you an example how we also can manage case reports and publish case reports. In the end, with a win-win-win for every participant, of course. Okay, so my final, basically almost final slide is who could be your patient? Who could be your customer? So in an ideal world, someone like Linda comes to you, says, I want to lose weight and I would like to do the test that you have. But we all know it's not that easy. But I would just like to show you an example of the medical field. How a lot of physicians, or how, not a lot of physicians, but how the physicians here in Germany work with us. So you can have all types of different diseases or pathogenic factors. So let's go very briefly through a few of them: hypertension, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, but also pregnancy, the wish to have children before pregnancy, thyroid diseases, menopause, cancer prevention, incontinence, arthrosis. So really different types of fields, but all of them have something in common. They are either the outcome of overweight or being obese, or they are accompanied by being overweight. And here it is always a very good choice if you offer a test, if you go for a successful, for a sustainable weight reduction, and this will always lead to more effective treatment in combination with a healthy weight reduction, right? So this is just one idea to give you one idea, one example, how our test is being used on a different type of variation or different variations of patients. Okay, goal achieved. This is now the second last slide. I'm almost at the end. Matthijs is already showing himself. Okay, goal achieved. This is a lady that had the desire to do a photo shooting in Baywatch style. And that was her dream. We did not know who this lady was, but this lady did our test. She lost weight. She fulfilled her dream. She had this photo shooting, and then she posted this on Facebook and basically thanked us for achieving her goal and fulfilling her dream. And I would always like to end with this, because this shows us that despite all the scientific evidence and scientific discussions, this type of feedback shows us that what we are doing is the right thing that we do. And with this, thank you very much. And I'm very happy to answer your questions.
Yes,
Although,
thank you.
Matthijs, I'm
Yes,
very
thank
sorry.
you very. That's okay.
I have to. I tried. Bedankt voor jullie aandacht. Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much for that clear and compelling education, Oran. Really, we will have a very brief moment in light of the time to discuss one question with you. But of course, I still invite every one of our participants to use the Q&A module in the toolbar to ask any questions, as I imagine that they might have. And of course, if it's not handled today, then we will come back on your questions later. So please do not worry about that. So Oran, one question that I would like to ask you, this comes from our audience. Is it possible, or can you influence a gene abnormality with epigenetics and with lifestyle?
Okay, so epigenetics is a great topic. I am a geneticist. I have a PhD in genetics, and I love the field of epigenetics, right? Epigenetics is basically the very last drop that makes us different from many other things. So just to give you a very clear example, we have more than 250 different cell types in our body. A nerve cell and a liver cell, right? Look completely different and have completely different functions. But all of them, all of these different cell types have exactly the same DNA in the cell. So what makes the difference? The difference in turning on and off genes is epigenetics. Epigenetic marks lead to turning on specific genes, turning them off at specific or at different time points. So the genes that we analyze, this is a variation in the genome. This is a so-called SNP, a single nucleotide polymorphism. And this is something that we have that will not change, right? So we are born with this and we will die with this. So this is something that we cannot change. But if we know how this variation is, we can do something, right? We can use it and optimize our lifestyle. And epigenetic markers, there is a lot of evidence now rising that epigenetic markers can be affected, can be altered with a healthy lifestyle. And let me now drop the surprise. What would be the healthy lifestyle? Of course, a good food, a good diet plan, and exercise, right? Regularly exercise. With this, you can always influence the good points of epigenetic markers, but you cannot get rid of gene variations that you already have, right?
Okay, that is very clear. Thank you again for that comprehensive explanation, Oran. I would then now, thank you again. I would now like to invite our second guest speaker for his presentation on how this genetic analysis now translates into practice. And from here on, we will switch to Dutch. Dus Olaf, ik zie dat de camera en microfoon aanstaan. Zou je, ja, ik zie alles is al geregeld. Dan geef ik bij deze hier het woord aan jou.
Dankjewel, Matthijs. And thanks to Oran for his presentation. Kunnen jullie mijn dia zo zien? Matthijs?
Yes, ja. Zeker.
Goed zo. Ja, ik ga het in het Nederlands doen. Voor de meeste collega's ook erg handig. Ik heb wat meerdere studies gedaan, waarvan klinische psychoneuroimmunologie als laatste. Ben onder andere ook verbonden aan de Vrije Universiteit in Brussel. Naast ons gezondheidscentrum hier in Weert in Nederland. We kijken naar gezondheid vanuit een breed perspectief. Dus voeding is er één, bewegen, het sociaal netwerk van mensen, dag- en nachtritme, de mate waarin mensen zonlicht tot zich nemen, infraroodlicht, hoe het staat met hun regeneratievermogen, herstelvermogen, wat voor stressoren ze allemaal ondergaan, hoe het immuunsysteem werkt en dat in combinatie met de externe factoren. Daar zit ook dat DNA en epigenetica in, waar Oran het net over had. Vandaag wil ik even stilstaan bij hoe ik in de praktijk omga met de metacheck. Ik heb een paar casussen op verzoek voor Oran in het rechts in het Engels er even bijgezet. Casus 1, 55-jarige vrouw, wil reductie in overgewicht en het verbeteren van haar voedingspatroon. Weegt 89 kilo, is 1,76 meter met een BMI van 28,7. Een nogal Burgondische leefstijl met een zeer hoge sociaal-economische status. Met een dito leven, veel uit eten, veel op vakantie. Is familiair belast met heupdysplasie. En bij haar hebben we op verzoek de metacheck afgenomen. Daar komt dit resultaat uit. Dus wat minder gunstig in het omzetten van koolhydraten, wel in de eiwitten, ook minder in de vetten. En is eigenlijk meer een snelkrachtsport persoon. Daar hebben we ons ook op gericht. Zoals Oran net heeft uitgelegd hoe die types in elkaar zitten. Daar hoef ik dan niet te lang bij stil te blijven staan. In het rapport wat je krijgt, wordt dit ook keurig netjes opgesomd. Waarin ook duidelijk wordt aangegeven wat eigenlijk de energiebehoefte is die iemand eigenlijk zou hebben, berekend vanuit dit profiel. Interessant is dat in het rapport duidelijk wordt aangegeven 2 fases, waarbij de gewichtsverliesfase op deze manier qua percentage van eiwitten, koolhydraten en vetten wordt geadviseerd. Maar waarbij het de bedoeling is om richting de lange termijn fase te stabiliseren naar deze percentages, dus de koolhydraten uiteindelijk wat te verhogen. De eiwitten en de vetten en de redelijke verdeling. Je ziet er rechtsonder ook staan dat die percentages uiteindelijk ook gebruikt kunnen worden in het voedingsportaal. Daar kom ik straks nog even op terug. Interessant bij deze dame is dat ze sterk effect heeft tot jojoen. Dat is ook een van de redenen dat ze er wat aan wilde doen. Niet een sterker of een verzwakt verzadigingsgevoel. Wel een sterke neiging tot verlies van spiermassa. En dat is wel interessant, want dat zien we ook terug bij de heupproblematiek, om dat goed op te bouwen. Een sterker gevoel voor honger. En een sterke neiging tot visceraal vetweefsel. En dat is ook eigenlijk een van de redenen dat ze er graag iets aan wilde doen. Het aantal maaltijden wat u hierboven ziet staan, 3 per dag met een pauze van 5 tot 6 uur. Daar heb ik zelf wel wat vraagtekens bij, omdat wij eigenlijk mensen adviseren liever eerder wat minder te eten. Daar is ook eigenlijk behoorlijk wat literatuur over, want ik denk dat ook dat wat meer gepersonaliseerd is. En voor Oran heb ik zelfs even gezocht naar wat Engelstalige boeken van dezelfde schrijvers. Van Paul Kleter, er is zelfs een boek in het Duits erbij, omdat ik weet dat Oran van origine Duits is. Maar dit zijn zeg maar de boeken waarin daar ook veel over wordt gepubliceerd en beschreven. Verder vind ik het interessant dat het moment van eten en de reactie van het immuunsysteem nadien nogal erg lang is, afhankelijk van wat je eet. Dus ook dat denk ik dat we mee moeten nemen in een advies over maaltijdfrequentie. In de rapportage wordt eigenlijk voor de cliënt heel goed beschreven wat koolhydraten nu zijn. Wat het percentage is waar ze uiteindelijk naartoe zouden kunnen gaan en waar die koolhydraten dan in zitten. Dat wordt natuurlijk hetzelfde gedaan voor de eiwitten. Ook keurig goed beknopt beschreven. In dit geval voor deze persoon is dat ook de energiebron waar ze het makkelijkste de omzetting uit kan halen, de energie. Hetzelfde geldt voor de vetten. En uiteraard ook waar die vetten dan qua voeding te vinden zijn. De metatype, in dit geval voor de alfa, Oran liet er net een korte slide van zien, maar die is behoorlijk uitgebreid. Dus weet dat dat echt al bijna 4 pagina's beslaat, met allerlei voedingsmiddelen waarvan dus wordt aangegeven om ze vooral te eten of wat beperkt, of in ieder geval weinig te eten. En dus de groen, gele en rode variant. Maar die is heel erg uitgebreid. Het is absoluut interessant om deze te gebruiken. Wat ik wel zelf in de praktijk daarin meeneem, is dat dit natuurlijk niet gaat om mogelijk aanwezige intoleranties. En daar kom ik daar nog even op terug. Want die bepalen we in onze praktijk met de IMU-Pro, ook bij LHM. En dat is een IgG-bepaling, IgG 1, 2, 3 en 4. Welke gedaan kan worden voor 90 of 270 voedingsmiddelen. Het prettige vind ik in de praktijk is dat je de uitkomst van die IMU-Pro eigenlijk heel mooi kunt leggen naast deze lijst. Want het kan zijn dat er hier dus groene elementen bij zitten waar er toch een intolerantie voor bestaat. En dan kun je zeg maar die in deze lijst eigenlijk doorstrepen. Maar het kan ook zijn dat er voedingsmiddelen positief getest worden op de IMU-Pro, die eigenlijk hier rood staan. Nou, streep die dan ook aan, dan weet je in ieder geval dat je die al zeker beter kunt mijden. In ieder geval voor een bepaalde periode. Dus dat is, vind ik persoonlijk eigenlijk een hele mooie aanvulling op het onderzoek van de MetaCheck, de IMU-Pro. In dit geval snelkrachtsport bij deze casus in de sportsectie als sporttype kwam naar voren. Deze dame had eigenlijk wat meer de neiging om duursport te doen. Maar hebben thuis, ik gaf het al aan, een sociaal hoge economische status. Ze hebben zelf nogal wat sportfaciliteiten thuis. Dus het was eigenlijk niet zo moeilijk om deze cliënt zeg maar te veranderen in het sporttype. Als we een rapportage ontvangen van LHM, daar hebben we eigenlijk een portaal voor. Dan krijgen mensen ook een toegang tot de MetaCheck portal. En daarvoor hebben ze een code nodig. Ik heb hem een klein beetje moeten markeren. Want anders dan deel ik natuurlijk de volledige code van deze cliënt. Maar deze code wordt dus aan de cliënt doorgegeven, waarmee ze dus een account kunnen aanmaken op het MetaCheck portal. En ik kom straks even terug in wat je dan op die portal allemaal kunt vinden. Maar weet dat dus dit allemaal bij LHM prima geregeld is. Dus buiten de MetaCheck PDF, in dit geval de rapportage die je kunt downloaden, wordt er ook direct de code meegegeven die je dus de cliënt kunt verstrekken. Tweede casus, dat was wel interessant, want ik hou wel van out of the box denken. In dit geval benaderde iemand mij met een te laag gewicht en die nogal vaak ziek was. Met een gewicht van 46 kilo, 1,53 meter, 33 jaar oud, BMI van 19,6. Maar wilde graag eigenlijk richting de 55 kilo. Als bijzonderheden kampt ze met ADHD, waarvoor ze ook medicatie krijgt. Familiair belast met de ziekte van Scheuermann, waarbij je dus een versterkte bolling krijgt van de borstwervelkolom. Een versterkte thoracale kyfose. Is enorm perfectionistisch en heeft evidente psychische, sociale en financiële stressoren en heeft een zeer eenzijdig voedingspatroon. Ik ben vergeten eigenlijk hierbij te zeggen dat ze komt ook uit een redelijke laag sociale klasse. Dus ook de keuze zeg maar, van voeding is ook wel deels bepaald op basis van financiële status. Bij deze dame zagen we dit in de samenvatting. Dus wat minder goed in het omzetten van de koolhydraten, wel redelijk in de eiwitten en zeker wat minder in de vetten. maar meer een type voor de duursport. En alleen dit is natuurlijk resultaat wat gericht is op het afvallen. Ja, als we daar zeg maar specifiek in zouden moeten adviseren. Dit kwam maar bij haar naar voren in het rapport. Met 1862 geadviseerde koolhydraten, kilocalorieën per dag. De vraag is natuurlijk of dit voor haar eigenlijk wel voldoende is als ze wil aankomen. De gewichtsverliesfase wordt bij haar zo aangegeven, maar zij wil natuurlijk de andere kant op. En we willen eigenlijk meer naar de lange termijn, dus de vraag is of de koolhydraten dan niet omhoog mogen gaan. Uiteraard hebben we, om ook COGAP te laten meedenken, hebben we via LHM deze casus voorgelegd aan hun. Om te kijken wat we nou het beste kunnen doen. Dit is ook nog iemand die sterke yo-yo-neigingen heeft, een zwakke verzadiging, sterke neiging tot visceraal vetweefsel, al zou je dat bij de bouw niet direct zeggen. En wel sterk de neiging om spiermassa te verliezen. En dat is zeker iets wat we bij haar wel klinisch kunnen vaststellen. Ook hier zeg maar 3 maaltijden per dag, waar ik toen straks al de opmerking over gaf. Maar we hebben COGAP gevraagd van God, in dit geval gaat het om iemand die eigenlijk wil aankomen. Nou, dat was ook de eerste opmerking, want eigenlijk is het meer bedoeld voor gewicht te verliezen. Dan is inderdaad de vraag hoe je of je dat individuele dieetplan wel moet volgen, want dat is eigenlijk dan niet geadviseerd. Alleen de voedingslijst en ook het metatype voor het sporten, dat zou natuurlijk prima gebruikt kunnen worden om het gewicht te leren controleren. Alleen, dat zal dan wel gedaan moeten worden waarbij er voldoende calorieën, eigenlijk moeten we zeggen voedingsstoffen, zeker op de dagen dat ze dus gaat bewegen, gaat sporten, tot zich zal moeten nemen. Het advies wat we haar hebben gegeven is eigenlijk conform dat advies van COGAP, om met name de voedselinname heel erg strikt in de gaten te houden, in combinatie met het sporten. En zeker ervoor te zorgen op die dagen dat ze sport, dat ze echt voldoende binnenkrijgt. Nou, wat we geanalyseerd hadden is dat ze eigenlijk ook veel te weinig binnenkreeg. En heel vaak op een dag gewoon het eten oversloeg, omdat ze het gewoon te druk had en eigenlijk meer met haar bedrijfje bezig was dan met haar eigen gezondheid. De derde casus is een 51-jarige man, wat schommelingen in gewicht. Heeft eigenlijk een prima BMI van 70 bij 1,74 m. Maar de wens is richting de 68 te gaan en eigenlijk meer te blijven. Doet aan triathlon, kwart en halve triathlons. Even voor de mensen die dat niet weten, een halve triathlon is 2 kilometer zwemmen, 90 kilometer op de racefiets en 21 kilometer hardlopen achter elkaar. Dus dan moet je denken aan een 5 tot 5,5 uur intensieve sportbelasting. Dus dat mag wel als een behoorlijke duursport genoemd worden. Eet 2 keer per dag, traint 12 tot 16 uur afhankelijk van het seizoen in de week. Naast 40-urige werkweek met gezin. En de IMEPRO Basic is ook uitgevoerd. Dit was het resultaat van die test. Ook weer een alpha-type, maar in dit geval een snelkrachtsport om het gewicht beter te controleren. En dat is natuurlijk wel interessant voor iemand die aan duursport doet. Het sterke yo-yo-effect is iets wat ook duidelijk in de familie terug te voeren is. Een zwakkere verzadiging, sterke neiging om wat spiermassa te verliezen. En het visceraal vet is ook iets wat we in die familie zeker tegenkomen. Dit is natuurlijk best interessant, want iemand doet eigenlijk aan duursport, vindt dat ook leuk. Maar het interessante is dat wel opvallend is dat de halve triathlon best wel een aanslag op deze persoon geeft. Terwijl de kwart triathlon of de achtste triathlon de sporter eigenlijk wel enthousiaster wordt. En dat zie je ook eigenlijk terug in de trainingen. Dus in die zin zou dus eigenlijk de intervaltrainingen, dus wat korter trainen en wat kortere wedstrijden, veel beter passen om dat gewicht onder controle te krijgen. Want je kunt gewoon niet het hele jaar door zo intensief die duursport blijven doen. Er is ook een IMIPRO-test afgenomen. Daar kwamen toch verschillende dingen naar voren. Wellicht voor degenen die dat niet weten, sommige overgevoeligheden ontstaan gewoon door het veel gebruik. In dit geval weten we dat dat bijvoorbeeld in de periode rondom trainingen en wedstrijden, vooral bij lange duur, bijvoorbeeld banaan is. Want die werd dan gewoon meer gegeten. Maar andere dingen die spelen al van kinds af aan. Dan moet je vooral denken aan de melkproducten die hier naar voren komen. De gist, dat weten we nog uit zijn studententijd, dat hij eigenlijk helemaal niet tegen bier kon bijvoorbeeld. En nog steeds niet, dus dat blijft eigenlijk. En kippen-ei is in de periode eigenlijk veel sterker geweest, dus dat lijkt wel verzwakt te zijn, maar heeft zich dus niet hersteld. Het is overigens de tweede keer dat deze persoon de IMIPRO-test heeft afgenomen in een paar jaar tijd. Dus een paar dingen die zie je die eigenlijk blijven staan. Wat glutenbevattende granen bijvoorbeeld, die waren heel uitgebreid. En die zijn eigenlijk verzwakt naar nog een paar in de zin van haver, rogge en tarwe. Maar rundvlees is eigenlijk altijd gebleven in mindere mate kippen-ei en de melkproducten en de gist. De andere zijn eigenlijk wat meer bepaald door het eetgedrag. Dan even naar de metacheck. Bij het inloggen met de metacheck heb je een dashboard waarin je dus je eigen gegevens kunt invullen als patiënt. En ook je types invoert zoals die in de rapportage naar voren komen. Zodat eigenlijk het systeem voor je kan bepalen, ja, hoe zit dat dan met je voedselplan, de voedingsmiddelenlijst. Daaruit kun je wat boodschappen maken, een oefeningsplan kan gegeven worden, wat verschillende tips. Maar ook bijvoorbeeld lichaamsstatistieken kun je invoeren en eventuele prestaties en zelfs een watertrekker kan erin gezet worden. Nou, wat je dan bent, in dit geval de laatste casus, is zo dus ingevoerd. Waar je dus ook die neigingen weer terugziet in de zin van verhoogd of zwakker. Bij het opleidingsplan, oftewel het sportplan, komt dus duidelijk naar voren dat de kracht toch het grootste gedeelte mag zijn in vergelijking met de duur. In dit geval heb ik 2 metingen hierin vastgelegd, maar die gaan tot september 2022. Uiteindelijk is die in oktober aan zijn doel van de 68 kilo gekomen. En dat gewicht blijft nu door wat meer te richten op de snelheden binnen de triathlon, blijft dat eigenlijk nu keurig op niveau. Dus dat doel is wel inmiddels gehaald. Ik weet niet of er van jullie vragen zijn. Het geeft een beetje een inkijk in de manier waarop de metacheck in ieder geval toe te passen is in de praktijk. De ondersteuning vanuit het portaal, maar ook vanuit LHM, die is eigenlijk heel prettig. Ook vragen die in de rapporten naar voren komen worden altijd keurig beantwoord en als ze wat complex zijn, voorgelegd aan COGAP. Dus dat is zeer plezierig. En ik denk inderdaad dat zo'n metacheck zelfs ook toe te passen is voor de andere zijde. Dus niet alleen maar voor mensen die willen afvallen. Daar is natuurlijk de test vooral voor bedoeld. Maar je zou het ook naar de andere zijde kunnen doen.
Ja, zeker. Ja, heel erg bedankt voor Olaf voor de heldere casuïstiek. Graag inderdaad is nu nog een moment om kort even een vraag van het publiek te behandelen. Ik heb er ook één die is ingezonden. Die zou ik graag met jou willen behandelen, Olaf. Een van onze deelnemers die begeleidt namelijk cliënten met het prikkelbare darmsyndroom. En meestal dan met het FODMAP-dieet. De vraag is nu, hoe kan deze test hierbij een meerwaarde bieden? En ja, zie je daar ook mogelijkheden in combinatie met andere testen?
Ja, dat is een hele goede vraag. Het FODMAP-dieet ken ik. Ik gebruik het zelf overigens in de praktijk niet. Ik gebruik dus meer die metacheck. Maar ik denk dat je eigenlijk hetzelfde probeert te bewerkstelligen om te kijken hoe mensen reageren op voeding. Ik ben iets meer van het meten is weten. En daar vind ik de IMIPRO een hele handige voor. Maar goed, de FODMAP kun je daar zeker ook voor gebruiken. Het prettige in combinatie met de metacheck is dat je ook weet hoe je letterlijk vanuit DNA-niveau reageert op voeding. En wat eigenlijk nog makkelijker weg te laten is om ook je gewicht beter onder controle te krijgen. Zeker ook in het kader van de verzadiging, spiermassaverlies, yo-yo-neiging en visceraal vet. En ik denk dat we niet moeten vergeten dat daarnaast het zelfs nog van belang is, want daar zijn wij nog niet aan toegekomen, hoe het zit met je microbioom. Want ook de variatie van je microbioom bepaalt natuurlijk welke functies je eigenlijk in je darmen hebt om bepaalde stoffen meer of minder goed te kunnen verteren, op te nemen, hoe het gebonden wordt. En in welke mate er zeg maar overgevoeligheid voor bestaat. Dus ik combineer het heel vaak ook met microbiomenonderzoek. En dan denk ik dat je eigenlijk het plaatje eigenlijk heel mooi compleet hebt. Dus ik denk dat het heel belangrijk is om dat te combineren.
Ja, nee, dat is inderdaad wel een duidelijke combinatie hoe dat inderdaad samenstelt. Ik denk dat we dan richting het einde gaan van deze webinar. Zijn zoals we verwacht zijn een klein beetje uitgelopen. En graag zou ik wel onze deelnemers nog jullie even de aandacht willen richten op onze volgende webinar. Welke plaats zal vinden in mei. Dit wordt ook een interactieve sessie omtrent de casuïstiek in de persoonlijke gezondheidszorg. Dus het zal, zoals je je kan voorstellen, ook wat verder ingaan op de volgende casussen en meer soortgelijke casussen die je vanavond al hebt gehoord. Nou, als allerlaatste, nogmaals, als er vragen zijn of opmerkingen voor onze gastsprekers of LHM, neem dan contact met ons op en wij zullen deze meenemen in onze antwoorden naar de deelnemers. De opname die wordt gedeeld, ook met de deelnemers. En mocht je vraag vanavond nog niet aan bod zijn gekomen, wees gerust, deze zal worden beantwoord. En als allerlaatste wil ik dan al jullie deelnemers bedanken voor de aandacht. En uiteraard onze gastsprekers Orhan, Olaf, thank you. En dan wens ik jullie nog een hele prettige avond. En dank u wel.